So thank you everyone for joining us on Friday, November 6th, what seems to be a very eventful day here in the United States as our recent national elections are coming to conclusion. And we'd like to encourage everyone that's on Facebook or on Zoom paying attention to this forum, that even though we're coming to you today from India with a virtual forum presentation there, we want to encourage everyone to continue to respect our fair and free electoral process, that people will, if they need to protest, that they will do so peacefully, and that hopefully we will have some definitive results, if not today, over the weekend, and that we'll keep all those who have been elected to office in our prayers and meditation practice as they begin to imagine their service or continued service to the United States, and pray also for all those who will be transitioning out of office, that they will do so respectfully in a way that upholds and affirms our democratic traditions. Today, we are coming to you as part of our weekly virtual forum series, but really specially today as part of IPM's International Executive Board meeting, which is happening virtually. We were all scheduled to be in India this week for a regional gathering of IPM South Asian partners, both in the community and our long-standing project partners. We just benefited from a remarkable conversation and update from Parveen, who is the coordinator of long-standing IPM project partner HUM, Hindu and Muslims Together, in Ahmedabad. And we were reminded during her presentation of the importance of the kind of partnership that IPM affirms and the leadership role that so many women play in our work around the world, and the special need really at this point in our world's ongoing development to figure out ways to collaborate with people across the aisle, whether that's an aisle in a worship space or an aisle in a parliament, to bring one another together for the common good, understanding that we are all created equally and endowed with inalienable rights that include the pursuit of justice and peace for everyone. So today we're really thrilled to have three panelists with us who are going to be presenting related to the topic of women and the environment in their respective countries and continent. I'll list the panelists in the order I have them on. We posted on Facebook this morning. This will not be the order of presentation, but the first panelist is Soni Shrestha, who has a master's in business study and in rural development, and is the president of Prayas, which is an IPM, a long-standing sort of offshoot of a project partner that was formerly known as Golopang Grow in the Bandipur region of Nepal. Soni has been a member of the IPM staff family for, I think, probably over a decade now. I didn't check that out, but it's been quite a while. And many of us have had the opportunity to travel with her, to be with her, and to see the important work that she and our brand new International Executive Board member, Phumadi Thapa, have been doing in Nepal over the years. The second panelist is Bindiya Makwana, who is the newest member of the IPM team. She is what we call a Junior Fellow, conducting a fellowship with IPM, but based at the Pochabhai Foundation in Golana, that we heard quite a bit about, those of us that were involved in the conversation yesterday, and does remarkable work there with the women and children, particularly the girl children in her community, and is an avid dancer and dance instructor. Our third panelist, who will actually kick us off, is Meena Patel, who's an independent labor and women's rights activist, consultant, formerly as the Regional Education Officer for the International Union of Food and Agriculture Workers, headquartered in Geneva and accredited to the United Nations. And I hope it's okay for me to say that she was well positioned in that role. I've never been in a food pantry in anyone's home that's as organized and as diverse and eclectic as Meena's. And I really have enjoyed having her in our own home and sharing recipes with her, but more importantly, hearing about the really important work she's done in support of those folks that are working in the food and agriculture industries in India and around the world. She was an executive committee and was an executive committee member and organizer with the Self-Employed Women's Association. And many of you probably would have noticed yesterday the conversation and discussion we had about the history of women's suffrage and women's rights in India, and particularly that museum in Ahmedabad that we often visit on our immersion experiences there is an entity and a group that Meena has been deeply involved with over the years. Meena is also, full disclosure, married to Mahesh Upadhyaya for some time, our regional director for South Asia, and they share a daughter, Megha, who is a law graduate, just passed the New York bar, and a remarkable young woman in her own right, who hopefully we'll get to hear from at some point. But today we're going to have this panel discussion. Again, I'll ask Meena to kick us off, and then after Meena, we'll go to Soni and then conclude with Bindiya, and then we'll open it up for conversation and questions for anyone who would like to join in this forum today. Mahesh, is there anything that I need to add or that I've forgotten?
I think this summarizes it well, and I think we have around 12 minutes each and a Q&A session after that, right? Just
Great.
in case that... I guess we can start with Meena. May I request you to...
Yeah, and I apologize for the summary bios, particularly in the case of Meena and Soni. We could be going on for hours just describing all they've accomplished, and we look forward to watching Bindiya make the same kind of impact in her growing professional life as well. So, Meena, why don't you start us off?
Okay, good evening to all of you. Good morning to all of you, and probably good evening to people in this region. And I must thank Joe for that wonderful introduction that he's given about me. And Joe, it's 30 years now. I've been married to Mahesh. You know, next week it will be 30 years. Do I see Papa Joe? Is that Papa Joe on the screen?
Yeah, I think my dad is down there
hi.
in the bottom left.
Yes, yes. How are you? Fine. I think some people I haven't met before, and I'm so happy to meet you virtually. And I always dread that Joe will bring an IPM group to India and run away without meeting me. So I'm very, very happy that on this immersion I was invited to be with you and say a few words about the work that we do. Okay, I was asked to speak on women and environment, and please feel free to interrupt me if I go too fast or you can't understand me or what I'm saying. Actually, it's quite funny. You know, we have been today morning, and that's India time, evening, your time yesterday. We have been glued to the television trying to see what's happening in the US elections. Who's going to become president. And I was just casually Googling about, you know, you have this thing about the important events on a particular day. So I said, okay, what was the most important thing that happened on 6th of November globally, you know, years past. And it was really amazing. I was inundated by all this information which Google was throwing. And most of the events were linked to elections. I don't know why, but it was linked to elections. And I saw a list of people who were elected on 6th of November, including, I think, President Abraham Lincoln. And there were no women in that list. So, all the important events on this particular day that Google could tell me about were all about men. There was not a single woman who was on the list. And that was quite an eye-opener. And I wondered, how are we going to start linking women's representation and participation to environmental challenges that we face today? Because we can't see them in politics, we can't see them socially, we don't give them importance in economics. So how are we going to really appreciate what women do for environment? Interestingly, in my previous work, as Joe said, I have worked a lot with agricultural labor, tea plantation workers, all sorts of plantation workers globally, and specifically Southeast Asia and South Asia. in the, the kickoff to the person who sowed the seeds of why women are important when we talk of sustainable development. It was a female Danish economist known called Esther Boserup. Any of you, if you have read her work, in the 60s, she came up with these theories while she was working with agricultural labor. She also worked, interestingly, with United Nations and many other international organizations, and has done extensive work on agrarian change. And she's the one who wrote about women's role in economic development, and a lot of research went into it. I think globally, she researched into many countries, many third world countries, and wrote this book, which is very fascinating. And for me, it has that book has been critical. The work that she did in writing that book was very critical because it actually sowed, it actually talked about the mindset change that needed to come about, that needed to be brought about amongst policymakers, ideologues, women's rights groups. And she was talking of agriculture and agricultural labor all the time. And so this was in the 60s when she wrote this book and did extensive research on agrarian change and women and economic development and the role of women. For the next 20 years, I'm sure a lot was done, but it took about 20 years. So that 1980s, when the governments and the policymakers became mindful of environment and gender issues. I mean, if you look at the work which was done internationally, even in the International Labour Organization or United Nations or the United Nations Forum for Women and Children, you'll see that it is the 80s which really started talking about gender, about environment, about natural resource allocation, environmental and climate change, and importantly, women's role and their participation in bringing about this change, not only locally, but globally. And there was a lot of work being done to involve women locally in all these aspects of specifically natural resource and allocations. But it is not till the 90s, specifically 91, when we find that the World Bank finally acknowledged that women play an essential, and I'm quoting a World Bank document, which says women play essentially a significant role in natural resource management, into bracket, soil, water, forest, energy. And they have profound traditional and contemporary knowledge. It's rather, I'm very skeptical about this because I personally don't feel the need for a certificate from the World Bank of all the places to tell me that women have traditional knowledge or women have contemporary knowledge about what happens to the environment and what changes are required and how we should sort of manage our natural resources. But anyway, it is important. This document was important because ultimately that led many of the international governments to really look into the aspects of involving women when it came to issues of natural resource management, allocations, land allocations, how to manage and how to involve women in policy making when it came to these very critical issues. And then you see the 20th century, the 2000s, where gender and environmental relations, it led to very valuable ramifications in understanding, distribution of resources, day-to-day responsibilities, day-to-day life, especially well-being of the poor and how it was linked to environment and ecology and forest, and also the emergence of the concept of sustainable development. You'll see at the end of the 19th century, the 20s, when it started, the year 2000, a lot of talk on sustainable development. Each and every document that you see, they'll talk about women in sustainable development, how to participate, how they should participate, what they should do, what it means, what is sustainable development, what it means to really sustainable economy. And the term sustainable became very fashionable, and it started being used quite often. this is just a background to what I think is very critical for all of us to look into when we are talking about women and environment. It's quite fascinating that universally when we talk about Earth, the term that we constantly use, even with children or even in faith-based discussions, in our prayers, in our discourses, we always talk of Earth as Mother Nature, don't we? We always say Mother Nature, or we always say Mother Earth. It's very interesting, and I come to it at the end of it. What it means, when you say Mother Earth and Mother Nature. In other words, it is actually a cue to all of us. It's kind of a signal that, when we dwell upon the concept of women and environment, we should have a far more holistic view and understanding of environment than what we limit it to. We just limit it to climate and carbon footprint and ecology probably. But I think it's very important for us to include other aspects, So, for example, social values. Doesn't it impact the environment around us? If there's violence on women in our society, doesn't it impact the environment that we live in? The way we treat our ecology, the way we treat our forest, doesn't it reflect somewhere the way we treat human beings, especially women? Because women are the ones who give birth. They are the ones who nurture life. So if we treat them violently, aren't we treating nature violently? So to me, that's very important that when we talk of environment, we include other aspects besides climate and ecology and forests, land and water. It's also the societal values, I think, which we have to consider when we talk of environment in general. And that's why, to me, when we say women and environment, to me, it's a very critical concept, and it's very important that we talk of our society, the way the values that we impart to our children, the values that we propagate within the society, within our politics, within our economic systems and structures. Many of my sisters and brothers who are from this region will understand, and I think it's also globally true that, Mother Earth, when we speak about mother as an Earth as a mother, in India and especially South Asia, it has a whole new different meaning, because in many of our rituals, our traditions, we worship Earth and nature in many, many different ways. Ultimately, as we all know, that environment, when we say environment, we mean air, fire, water, land, forest. And to me, I always add societal values. So to me, that's very important. I always add that. So in our countries, many of our countries, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, even Pakistan, probably Afghanistan, many of the regional countries, even in Philippines, I have seen, the rural folk and even people who follow those customs in an urban area would purify the air on a daily basis by using limestone powder. Anybody who's into science knows that limestone powder is a purifier. It's an air purifier. It also purifies water, for that matter. So it's very common in our regions to use limestone powder either to smear walls, to even paint walls, and to use it in the entrances to make a welcoming design. We call it a rangoli in our region, and people in southern part of South Asia southern part of India would use it on a daily basis. In other places, maybe on days of worship or some event or a festival, but it is used very commonly to purify air. Fire, another important aspect of our environment, is for us no auspicious ceremony or a puja, as we call, can ever be complete without the worship of fire. We have to have fire to start a puja or to start a ceremony, whether it's a marriage, a housewarming, a death ceremony, anything auspicious, or in any ceremony doesn't start without worship of fire. As we all know, fire is a source of all energy, all energy. The creation of this world, I think, was a sort of fire, the Big Bang. Okay, I'm not going into details of science, but that's what it was. It was compressed energy which burst. In many countries, we worship the earth. We call it Bhumi as a before we start construction of any building, whether house, commercial. So that's also the worship of land. Trees are worshipped on many of our festivals and fast. And as you know, the banyan tree, the peepal tree, and the holy basil, which we call tulsi here, is the most auspicious of trees for us. So this is the traditional and the ritualistic part which worships nature. But when it comes to women, they always nurture earth and the environment. They understand the concept of giving back equally of what they take. So if they take a plant, they'll grow another plant. Maybe they'll grow 2 plants. Even I remember in my childhood, if we went and plucked a flower, my mother would always say, go ask permission that you can pluck the flower. Even when you're plucking the holy basil for a puja, you have to take permission, you know, and to worship, saying that we are taking you for such and such person, please, reason, and please forgive us. And I think women also understand the concept of why not waste not, you know, that you shouldn't waste natural resources. And you'll find that in India and in many countries that women have always been at the forefront or maybe the initiators of major environmental movements. I can give you 2 or 3 examples, especially in India. You may have heard of the Chipko movement. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that term. Chipko literally translated from our languages means to hug a tree. It was a movement started by a 93-year-old now, a person called Sundarlal Bahuguna in the 1970s. He worked, and he's an eco-environmentalist, and his wife Vimla Bahuguna, both of them are very well known in our circles. And they were working for the preservation of the Himalayan forest. And there were dams coming in there. The government had at one point of decided to give a huge chunk of the forest land to a sports company to fell the trees and stand. And they undertook a march of about 5,000 kilometers around the Himalayas to educate the forest dwellers about why they should save those trees and what they can do. Finally, it was his wife who gave him this idea that we are not going to be able to stop the bulldozers, you know, unless we do something very drastic. And what is the drastic thing that you can do when the bulldozers come is to hug the tree. And the men hesitated. The women didn't hesitate for a second. They went and started hugging the tree. So every time the bulldozer would come in a particular area, there'll be thousands of women, hundreds of women who will be hugging the trees, you know, and the men would be watching on the sidelines that if they have to pick up some arms and take care of the trees and not to get them axed. And that's how the movement started. It was an idea which was propagated by a woman, and the women carried it forward. It's a landmark movement in India and globally when it came to preservation of ecology and environment. The second, Mahesh is telling me I have very little time, so I'll make it very quick. The other example is the smokeless chula. Chula means a stove, which the village people over here use, where we know half of the world's population, about 3 billion people, use solid fuels such as coal, wood, animal dung, crop residues. And there was this person, his name is V. Jayaprakash from Kerala, which is a state in southern India, who used to go around with his mother, helping her to sell clay stoves, because, you know, the mother wanted to earn money so that she could educate her 6 children. He himself had to drop out in high school so that he could help his mother earn some money. And he used to see that, this stoves, the fuels that you are using, the emissions, the emissions were hurting and smarting the eyes of the women who used it. And eventually he came up with this, with his mother's suggestion, he came up with this stove, which is smokeless, and it's very famous now. So anyway, so these are the two or three examples which I wanted to leave you with when we talk about women and how they impact environment and the movements over there. The third example that I wanted to give was on rainwater harvesting ponds, but if we have time, we'll take that up later. But finally, one very important information that I would like to leave with all of you is globally, if you look at statistics, women only earn 10% of the wages as compared to men. Men earn the 90% and women earn only 10%. If you look at resource allocation or ownership of assets, land particularly, you will find globally only 1% of women own land. And this is very critical when we are talking of women's participation in saving environment, in doing something positive. So this also leads to a kind of social imbalance, and the patriarchal mindset also creates a kind of social violence, which harms our environment and our ecology. So once again, I would say that why do we use the word or term Mother Earth or Mother Nature? Because Earth gives us oxygen, water, food, and shelter. The term also personifies and focuses on the life-giving and the nurturing aspects of nature by embodying in it the form of human mother who births and nurtures. So we are, I think, born with the responsibility of not destroying what creates us, because if we destroy our mother, nature, or environment, we are also destroying creation itself. So I think if we don't consider women at the core of our struggles, we are missing out the whole struggle, in fact. Okay, I'll end here because if I keep on, I can keep on adding a lot of things, and I wouldn't like to do that. I'll leave it to Soni and Bindiya also to add to things that I have said, and probably if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them at a later
Thank
stage.
you so much. Thank you so much, Meena. Sorry if I keep looking down. I want to remind people that I'm trying to monitor the Facebook feed.
No, sure.
While listening to this and moderating this. I probably should have had one of my other colleagues do this, but as you all know, Mahesh kind of hold this together at the last minute. Meena obviously provided us a really wonderful view from 10,000 feet, if you will, sort of an overview of what internationally what's happening and some background on issues related to women in the environment. And I'm sure she could also share with us a multitude of more personal stories from India and her own experience. And I will mention, I shared with her privately that there's a wonderful TED Talk by a friend of ours about the power of trees that I can share with you that was done in conjunction with the Centennial of Acadia National Park here in Maine. So we sort of started at this broader level, if you will, and we're gonna now turn it over to Soni to give us a summary kind of her work in Nepal and the really vital role that the women that she and Fumati work with in supporting and nurturing environmental justice in their communities. Soni, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Good morning and good evening to all. Thank you for nice briefing for Meena Patel. She told all about how environment and ecology is similar. India and Nepal is similar cases. So I go to with women and environment in how women and environment in Nepal. Though all you know that Nepal belongs with Hindu society. So though there are some people are Buddhist, Christian, Muslims are also, but we are as our society is male dominated society, so we have to ask or permission whatever we do with the we have to do with the head of the family, like as a head of the family is our father. And so it's different environment, like as urban and rural area, there are different environment for women. So some now in before in like as in the year 1990s, before 20 years, that time the so many dominated cases, women cannot go to school, and not so much how to say empowered women. And now the not so much in urban area, but some society, some people are also still in the rural areas that women are dominated, that they have to like as in a child in basic level school time also, women have to, girls have to send to the government school, and the boys are in the private school and the good school. They cannot get the good similar education. But we have a Bindiya Devi, president of Nepal is a woman, but still we don't have like a woman right. We are getting the similar rights like as a woman and like as a man. We have 33% seats in parliament with for women, but the we are facing the not similar rights. In the women cases, we cannot speak with the men. So some people are doing good. Some now that people are educated, and most of the people are literate. People are getting good education in the higher post. Women are getting higher posts, and some are doing so many good qualifications because of the their family background, and their family are supporting to women that they have to they can do anything, and they will give permission that whatever the woman can do. Some Nepalese women like as CNN hero Anuradha Koirala and Puspa Basnet also, we know that Nepalese women are doing the good social work in the world. So in Nepalese people, we are following, we are Hindu, so we have some conservative and some superstition we are following, and that we are also following that we have to follow some superstition, like as when women are get menstruation period, they put in the this is not in the urban area, but in some village case they put in the far from the house, that is a one small house, like they put there in the animals, and the same thing, because that time the instruction time we follow that women, they don't have to touch the drinking water, and some the we cannot touch kitchen materials, so they put the women have to stay in far from the house. So that time women they have so many difficult time. Some may die because of the not so much good food, and maybe the wild animals can eat, or some problems. So Nepalese government are giving the security and safety for us, for women. They have good rules, and they are giving, but not in the village area. Some women are getting nowadays also, they are also difficult, they are facing difficulty, because some of the village area, they are increased in rape case and some domestic abuse they are facing, and some women trafficking, girls trafficking are also increasing during the days, because of that they are, because of poverty, and because of the they are not doing the good. So and for the women, and environment we have also so many training and empowerment training we give, and environment like as
spelling are important.
For we are doing the training, and in village time we give the like as smokeless chulo for to decrease in the environment. We are most of the women are doing the kitchen work, so we have to when we face about the smoke, we have to control the smoke, and the when that smokeless chulo give the environment that remove the smoke. And we also and Fulmati and I also did the program that the biogas program, which is the bio means that the in village most of the people kept kept cow, goat, and some other animals, domestic animals they keep there, and that the that and we use that biogas, and from that their dung that we use in biogas, and that also help for the environment. And now we are also some tree planting, and because of most of the cut in the tree, and there in every year we are facing with the flood and landscape, so we are giving the women and other people in the village to plant the trees, whatever we can plant, and that makes it helps to control the flood and landscape. So some of the people are also interested, and they are doing time to tree planting, and we are doing this. Thank you, though. Thank you all.
Thank you, Soni. That was really helpful, and I want to encourage everyone who's online and joining us on Zoom to think about the possibility of visiting Nepal. Many of us have been there, or some of us have. Ilsa was part of a wonderful delegation that traveled to Nepal. It's one of the most beautiful countries on earth. I think we all sort of know that about it from what we hear, but there's really remarkable work being done by Soni, Fumati, all the graduates of the Social Work Institute in Kathmandu, which has been a longstanding partner of ours, another Jesuit affiliated, as Mahesh likes to say, organization. And you know, there's nothing quite like seeing that work up front, including the real vital role that the women, some of the women that Soni mentioned, played in that solar light campaign that we conducted a few years ago. Many of your generosity and the hard work of our colleague Rosalie Kell. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Bindiya. We'll sort of head back to India or head west and get to Golana and a little bit more about her work. And then if my watch is correct, when Bindiya ends, we'll have about 10 minutes for conversation and questions. Please feel free to type them into the chat function. I see there's quite a conversation going on. I thank you all for that. And also on Facebook, you can add right into the comment session. And Bindiya, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I think Meena and Soni both have collected so many things, and I don't think I'm that matured or experienced to share all that stuff. But right now, what I'm going to do is I will share the experience that I have been working with Pochabhai Foundation for 2 years. So basically, we have been working with 700 kids. There are environmental issues, but I feel I'm not that enough experience to share all that stuff. But right now, let's move to the solutions, what we are working with. So whenever we talk about the change, kids are the most appropriate way of doing it because they are the smallest mind, and we can actually train them and plan our future into them. So right now we have done kitchen garden and plantation with them in all 20 villages where we are working as remedial classes. And we have made kitchen gardens in all their classes, just in front of their classes. So the kids are planting the seeds and growing their own kitchen garden. Uh, they are also learning solidarity in that sense. They are working together with the teachers. We have been visiting the centers very often. And right now, like as we talk, that nature is getting spoiled by human itself. So sometimes when we teach the children to do all this stuff on their own, they teach the same thing to their parents too. Because if we directly go to the mature lady or person, they will not listen to us. But when it comes to children, they get that soft corner in their hearts. So we are trying to do that on this particular point. And yeah, like we have been doing this work for 3 months, and right now whenever we visit the village, they are growing enough vegetables in their garden. It's also for the kids and the teacher, and particularly they can share the same vegetables with the villagers around. Somehow we have been able to decrease the malnutrition in the particular areas of the villages. The second option was the second try of nurturing the nature was we have done plantation of trees in the villages, and we have asked the children to take care of the plants, whatever they plant. We just don't want them to just go and plant it and forget what they have done. So they usually go there and take care of the plants. They water them, and if somebody is trying to spoil them, they are literally fighting for the thing. And somehow, if I agree with Meenavan, it is somehow the smaller Chitka Andolan taking place there also, because they are fighting for the same thing where what we were doing on that earlier stage. So yes, these are the things. There are certain problems regarding drinking water also, where we have been working, like who are many of the friends who are from India. They know the village Galyana near Kolana, Pochabhai Foundation itself. There was big drinking water issues, and Pochabhai Foundation team, Bhanubai and some other colleagues of mine, they have gone to the collector office and applied for the thing. They have filed a complaint, and somehow we have got the positive response. So if we just talk about the positive things, these are the things. And yes, I'm done with it. Thank you, Joe.
Oops, thank you, Bindiya. You know, I'm sure Meena, knowing Meena the way I do, I'm sure she would agree with Mahesh and I that one of the real joys of getting to our age and having been involved in this sector for so long is when young people like you step into the void. So you never need to apologize at all about your experience. You already have remarkable experience. As Mahesh said yesterday, your English is simply phenomenal. It is just really phenomenal. And we're also thrilled that you're working alongside HEMIT and others in the really important work of Pochabhai, and including the women and girls, especially in that community. I think there are some questions or comments. So let's see if we can move on to those. Oh, we have Clint is making a point, and I can affirm that this is really a wonderful resource. I think he probably told me about it years ago, but for those who are not on Zoom, he's talking about a perspective on agriculture and sustainable development from the Jewish and Christian biblical tradition. See a book called Scripture, Culture, and Agriculture, an agrarian reading of the Bible, by Ellen F. Davies, and a foreword by Wendell Berry, who's a remarkable poet I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So thank you, Clint, for sharing that resource. Do we have any questions at this point? You can probably hear my phone beeping in the background, so I'll check to see who's asking that way. But if anyone does and you're on Zoom, please feel free to unmute yourself and add your question or comment.
I just wanted to thank Meena, Soni, and Bindiya again for sharing. What always stands out for me is the passion and dedication that all three of you bring to positive change and lending voice for equality and equity. I couldn't help but think as each of you were talking, the parallels of IPM's role and hope in this regard. It's just really inspiring to be connected to each of you through IPM in the work that continues to be needed in this world. So the other comment I think that struck out for me was Bindiya's emphasizing children being as the way to keep moving forward in our hope and in our work for equality, equity, and all of that. So thank you again for sharing your time with us.
I'd like to echo what Ilse said and just say, I was really struck by that comment that Bindiya made as well. Just the idea that it is really simple things that you teach children that have long-term impacts, caring for the environment, planting, and the idea that when you ever, before you pluck something, you plant it. I think you plant something else. I mean, I think those are just great ways to help children understand their impact and their importance on preserving things in the environment. So it's a great discussion. Thank you, everybody.
Hello everyone, I am with Senia and she wants to say that she has enjoyed this presentation very much and that she identifies with it a lot because she feels that women are the ones who are in the food security territory while they are involved in the home or in the vegetable gardens that each family has. She was sharing with me that for her, when women get involved in these small family gardens or vegetable family gardens, that they not only contribute to the environment but also to economy and to have a better quality of life. She was saying that for her, especially in dry years, as we have been having here in Central America for a while now, these are the green spots that you can find on the land because there is not a lot of water. So women are actually improving the quality of life, not just for themselves, but for all of their family.
Is it okay to ask a question at this point, Joe?
Yeah, could you all hear the end of Vicky there? She kind of cut out on me.
I heard her.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, then go ahead. Sure, Clint.
This is mostly addressed to Meena, I think. Did I hear it correctly that you've worked with the United Nations in some capacity, or maybe at least could speak to what is the United Nations doing in an ongoing way in the area of agriculture and food security and sustainable development? I know the World Food Program recently received the Nobel Prize, which was a really good sign, I thought. But there may be other things that you know about that could be good news in 2020, which has been mostly bad news.
Yeah, I did not directly work with the United Nations, but I have been part of the labor movement for a very long time, and I worked with the International Labor Federation, which is accredited to the United Nations. So indirectly, we try and influence some policies there, and also more directly with the International Labor Organization. So one of, FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, they do a lot of work on sustainable development in India and also a lot on ecology and forest preservation. So, but currently 2020, 2019, I'm not updated at the moment about what programs they're carrying out in many of the countries. But my interest has always been, when it comes to agriculture and sustainable development, is to try and reduce the use of pesticides and chemicals and fertilizers. And we did a lot of work on that when I was working with the tea plantations in South Asia, especially Sri Lanka, Nepal, and India. We've done a lot of work on that. The other one is on sugar plantations, sugarcane plantations in Brazil. I've done a lot of work there, and many of the, through my organizations, of course, not directly. So we have a lot of,
Great.
But if I can add, it's very easy for people internationally to say that, women should be doing kitchen gardens. It's very important. But I don't think we should limit there, because it's very nice to say kitchen gardens, please stay in the kitchen and please stay in the kitchen garden, don't get out of it. And that has been the bane of most movements. For example, if you many of you may, I'm sure Joe knows about it. There's this very significant movement in the 80s and the 90s called the Via Campesina, which started in South America, and they started doing excellent work with small farmers, trying to say that small farmers are actually labor, because they cannot sustain themselves by the things that they grow in their small farms, and the small agriculture fields. And it did such excellent work by keeping its independent identity and trying to influence the FAO and the United Nations in terms of the rights of farmers, the land rights, the land use. But unfortunately, they never thought that they should include women in their struggle, and they, like I said, that because women don't own land, they were not part of this movement, and the movement died away because the men could not go beyond bickering and who should be the leader and who drank more glasses of tequila. Literally, I mean, I have seen them break apart on these issues, and if the women were there to hammer some sense into them, they would have done excellent work. They're still surviving, but they lost the steam, not even halfway through, but in the very beginning. And I've seen similar things happening in many of the plantations, that 50% of the workers over there are women, and you don't include them in leadership and decision making. So you'll find United Nations, FAO, trying to encourage women to grow kitchen gardens. That's fine, but then you are also relegating them to the kitchen again. People don't say that men should do kitchen gardens. They're good. I mean, so many men do such good work in the farms, right, Joe? And they do such good planting. But this is unfortunate. Even the best of the employment generation programs, which come out of the United Nations and World Bank, are basket weaving projects for women in, say, Africa, women in Latin America. But they don't think they can go beyond basket weaving. And to me, that is most unfortunate, because we're talking of such a critical aspect of our globe, environment and land, and how to do resource allocation and how to participate in the use of those resources. And the most we can think about is please grow kitchen gardens and be, economically, contribute economically to your family, which is unfortunate because, 80% of the labor within the family is done by women. And you think that kitchen garden contributes to the economy. I'm not making fun of it, but it's ironical that, we try, even in this day and age, we think so small and we want to sort of put them underground.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Meena. I think I want to clarify that when I referred to her pantry earlier, we have our own love of food and recipes that we share. So as Meena knows, my pantry aspires to be as organized as hers. And next time she's in Maine, I'll show her how much progress I've made. And I'm also the kitchen gardener in my family. So just to be clear, I didn't mean anything other than that, my own reference. And but I certainly concur with what Meena had to say. And while IPM is certainly focused on, if you will, micro projects, trying to move beyond the sort of more traditional gender roles that women are confined to. There's a point from Carol Finling, whether it's in a church environment, whether it's in the NGO sector, whether it's in our own relationships with our loved ones, is certainly a hugely important part of our work, and why we're so happy to be able to highlight the important work of women and girls throughout this virtual forum series, our meetings in India this week, and certainly today. I did post a link to the Via Campesina. As Meena said, it's still an active organization, but you can judge from their website what you think about how active they are or they aren't, or what they're active on at this point. I'm not sure. I know you're translating, Vicky. You know, Xenia obviously has a pretty deep well of experience and thought, I'm sure, on this from her own work in rural Nicaragua with women who are often confined to kitchen gardens, if you will. And I noticed that Dorothy Nyango, our board member from Kenya, also joined during the call. So if anyone else has any input, Dorothy, Xenia, Adela, Aneta, Vicky, please feel free to join in. And you can see also the good resources being shared by Clint on the Zoom feed, which are there as well. Anyone else? Well, it looks like some of you might be talking, but you're muted. So we probably have time for one more question or comment. If anyone has one, let me just check Facebook one more time. There have been quite a few people online. It's been good to see the interaction there. I think I caught all the questions. You can certainly, those of you on Zoom can see the comments. There's a pretty remarkable discussion and resource sharing going back and forth there also. And I think, does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Bindiya, Soni at this point? Look, Vicky, do you need to add anything? No?
Can I add something, Joe?
Go.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead,
go,
Vicky.
go.
No, go ahead, Vicky. I think we have.
No, Senia was just saying thank you, and I also personally would like to thank everyone who participated today. I feel very inspired by everything you shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicky. And Mahesh, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that it's also a matter of perspective of what we do on the ground and at the grassroots level. And I think Meena has given us some pointers on how to look at the situation on the ground in the Bhal region in particular, because I think we have worked there for the last 35 years, and a lot of work has been done in terms of reducing salinity in Greece, for example. Himat has not participated in this discussion so much, but he has been doing some amazing work on rainwater harvesting as a method of reducing the load on underground water resources for home consumption. He's also been doing well water recharging in certain areas. So I think a little bit of conversation along those lines, and in terms of what role women are playing. Any rally in Bhal region, you always see the women carrying pots on their head, right? There's the demand for water is so much in that area. There are aspects, for example, of how caste, environment, and gender interrelate with each other, you know, in the system of exploitation of natural resources, of the earth, of water, of air. And I think that's a very interesting area of work that Himu, Bindiya, and Meena, and many of the others can explore further, and also learn to articulate it in these terms, because I think praxis also means changing the way you think based on your practice, and also changing your practice on the basis of how your thought evolves. So there are some interesting pointers in this discussion, I think, and I look forward to having further discussions with both Himu and Soni and Bindiya about how to look at these issues in the context of women and environment. Because very often we have good intentions, but we also need to clarify our thought processes in the way. And given the fact that we are spending so much of our time and energy and resources on this, we need to develop it further and look forward to doing more work on that. I think I just would like to end there.
Thank you, Mahesh, and thank you, everyone. I love that last reference. I'm not going to get it right, but something about changing your thoughts so you change your practice and letting the change in your practice change your thoughts. It reminds me of the hermeneutical circle, if you know what I'm talking about. And just this idea of see, judge, act, reflect, that's been so important in IPM's own history of work around the world. We're going to end the Facebook forum now. And those of you who are on Zoom, maybe just stay on for another minute and we can touch base about our plans for the rest of the meeting today and tomorrow. I want to thank again, especially Meena, Soni, and Bindiya for their active participation and pulling this panel together today. As many of you know, we had originally planned to have Bandhu Dipti from Ahmedabad lead our conversation, and we're hopeful that maybe he will do that at an upcoming forum. But let's end the Facebook forum now, Ilse, if you don't mind. Thank you, everyone. On Facebook, we'll look forward to seeing you next Friday. And looks like we're off. I can never tell exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're at this point, we're at we're just past 12, and I want to thank you, 12 Eastern time. Thank Meena and Soni and Bindiya again. I thought that was a wonderful presentation. I frankly don't know, particularly Meena, how you pulled that together, since Mash and I were talking about this at about 2 o'clock in the morning our time. But you've got the experience to do so. And Soni, it was wonderful to have that input and your participation as always. And Bindiya, as I said, just a real joy to have you as part of the IPM family. We are going to break, if my memory serves, until 1 o'clock Eastern for our final session of the virtual forum today. And just so you know, I am I'm in my kitchen garden. No, but in addition to being in my kitchen garden or wanting to get out in my garden, it's a beautiful day. I actually are single parenting it at the moment. Aline is in DC. One of the things that this administration did was put a hold on all the finalization of all US citizen applications going back a couple months now to prevent immigrants who were in the final stages of getting their citizenship for voting. So we can talk about what votes should or shouldn't be counted. We can also talk about all the votes that were suppressed, and certainly thousands of immigrant votes. Folks who will be our newest American citizens were unable to vote in this election because of that really kind of insidious strategy. But she's in DC, which means I need to wind down by about 2:25 Eastern time to get the kids to their swimming practice. And that's about when we were scheduled. But I wanted to give you all a heads up that we'll try to start at 1 o'clock sharp and make sure that we don't go too far past 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Does anyone have any questions about the practicality of that or rejoining us? We will be back on the traditional IPM Zoom feed, not this public feed, as a more of a, obviously, board private conversation. So anything else? A couple of you, Hemit and Carol, who aren't actively on the board now, anything you want to add before we sign off? Thank you for your point about women in the church, Carol. I know that was very dear to Sammy, and I talked about that a little bit yesterday during our board session.
I'm just in awe and amazed at the board, at our people out in the field, around the world. I cannot imagine what everybody at this point, in fact, I'm just writing to my grandchildren now, and I'm saying these are times that I never would have expected. And I'm just telling them that it's relationships that count, and that's what this is. IPM is a relationship between not only the board members, but everybody who is in IPM. It is millions of people whose lives have been touched. And if I can just add one short thing here, I could have forgot about it totally. There's a book out called The Dash, and it is The Dash, Making a Difference in Your Life. And it is a small book. You can read it in about 10-15 minutes. I would highly recommend it. And I can send more information to you, Elsa. You can maybe forward it to people. I have given it to all of my grandchildren because it talks about how we interrelate and how our life impacts other people and ourselves, and how we can be a better person by doing the small things, which is what IPM is.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks for sharing. That is, I can't tell you the number of people that have brought that book up to me in the last couple of years, particularly around memorial services and other things. So
it's a phenomenal book.
It is. And I want to, again, I mentioned this yesterday, for those of you who are newer to IPM maybe, or haven't checked this out, there's a wonderful video. I believe the link is still on our website. You might have to look a little bit hard for it because Zach is reconfiguring things so they fit better on a portable device rather than just a Mac. But there's an interview with Carol there. I mentioned the interview with Sammy yesterday about her own experience in the founding of IPM and going to India as a young woman. And I think if you have the time to check that out, it's only about 10 minutes. It is a bit dated, but I think all the music is from Gladiator and Titanic or something, but it's a nice video. And it really gives you from Carol, from Sharon Milligan, from Leah, who was involved in, bringing Soni, if you will, and Fumati into the IPM family and so many others. It's a great resource. So we'll, there was one other thing I wanted to, yes, thank you, Ilsa. I should have done that when we were online, so I guess there's no point now. But for the board, reminder that Julieta Bora, our first regional director for Latin America and the Caribbean, and still a dear friend of IPM, will be speaking at next week's forum about her work with the Sisters City Project, particularly in Chalatenango in northern El Salvador, where Maura Clark and Ida Ford were working at the time of their murder in December of 1980, which is hard to believe will be 40 years ago next month. So we have approximately 50 minutes, and unless Vicky, Mahesh, or Ilsa, or all the other people that are telling me what I should be doing this week want to remind me of something I'm missing, I think we'll sign off.
Let's sign off.
We good to go? Vicky, do we need to do anything before we?
No, Joe, I just think you said 15 minutes, but I'm not sure. I think it's 45.
Yeah, I meant 50, 50. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. But no, we're good.
Yeah.
I just want to real quickly add again to Carol's comment earlier, IPM is all about relationships, and all of you that are on this call, whether it's staff, whether it's board, whether it's treasured friends that have, helped us from the founding days or from recent days, you inspire our work. You make a real difference, and we are so grateful to be connected in this way, and particularly grateful for these virtual opportunities to see each other and to kind of validate the work all of us are committed to. So thank you all again.
Thank you. Thank you, Meena. I look forward to being with you. And Soni and...
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Sorry I got in late. And
no, you're great, Dorothy. No worries.
I'm just getting the hang of all this.
Thanks a while.
I think we all are still getting the hang of all this. So.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Have a
See
good day.
See you again.
Almost 50 minutes.